Thank you, Felicia.
Yeah, thank you. And again, if in case you didn't realize, I'm
And
Jonathan.
I'm Elena.
So we're very excited to be with you. We're very, very excited this week. We've been looking forward to this week for a long time now because starting, I believe, by the end of this week, I think almost every single Michael's retail location will have every single one of our shades, which is a very big deal because we have a wonderful tool that we've been working on for, I don't know, 10 years now called our color formulas. And what it is, there's a little bit of story, but there is someone in our lab, and his job fully is to field color, questions about color. So if we don't make the color you'd like, someone might email us and they'd be like, "Well, I'm looking for this very specific taupe for my wedding."
Split.
Yeah, or this blue. And so his job is to come up with the mixtures of our dye in order to create that color. And what we started doing about 10 years ago is creating a library on our website, which is now integrated into Michael's as well. And it has every single one of those colors that he's ever made. And we're up to almost 1,000 now. So while you think we have about, I don't know, it's like 30, I think 37, 38 shades in our all-purpose dye line.
39.
39 shades and 15 in our Dyamore line, you can actually make over 1,000 different colors by mixing them with this tool. And so we're here to show you how to use the tool, where you can find it, and then of course you'll have the experience of being able to go to a Michael's now and be able to create every single one of those colors yourself.
Exactly. And we're just going to show you some cool tips and tricks on how to get like that true best color that you see on the screen while you're exploring. Just a few things that you might need if you're going to get started on like swatching and like testing out some color formulas. And then we can kind of get into how to actually use the color formulas webpage, and we'll go through some different swatches and how different colors get impacted by other colors being added to it, and do a little color theory review. So first and foremost, we like to have some white swatches. These are just white cotton, but you can use whatever that you're dyeing. If you're dyeing polyester, obviously have some polyester swatches, and you'll be using Dyamore for synthetics with that. And then we have our all-purpose dyes that we'll be mixing up. We have our measuring spoons and tongs, and then we also have our handy dandy color wheel just to help us through today, and some rubber gloves. And over here we have some mason jars in our sink to start dyeing. And we also have some salt on hand as well, since we're dyeing cotton.
So I know that like using the testing with the actual fabric you're dyeing is the best method, but can you use paper towels or anything?
You can, but just keep in mind that once dry, the fabric will be about like, I'm gonna say like 30% lighter.
Okay.
But that's not an obvious science, but I would definitely do a paper towel test if I don't have a swatch on hand. But other times you can just kind of like see if there's like a little inseam from your clothes that you can just kind of snip and test it on that. But if not, paper towel always works for me too.
Yeah, great. The beauty of this tool is that it makes it so easy. You can literally create any color you want. It's just like following like a cooking recipe,
Yeah.
which is more or less how you often dye too. So now we're gonna have our coworker Lauren. She's gonna do a screen share of the tool, which is on a Michael's website on our Rit landing page towards the bottom, and we'll get to show you a little bit about how to use it. So this is our landing page. You scroll toward the bottom. We've worked with Michael's to integrate our color formulas, which is right there. So the first thing you'll have to do is click the type of dye that you're using. We have, again, our all-purpose dye, which is for mostly natural fabrics like cotton, linen, silk, and wool. And then we have our Dyamore for synthetics, which is if you're dyeing anything with 60% or more synthetic fabrics like polyester, acrylic, or acetate. So we just click the all-purpose dye, and so now you'll be able to see all the different colors we have. Lauren, why don't you do a little scroll, and we can see, there's pretty much infinite number of colors here to get anything you want.
And if the colors aren't right, like there's always, you can just tweak it ever so slightly to get it perfect for you, or also email us and we can get it perfect for you.
One other thing we'd love to show you is a new tool that we just added, which is if you click products, you can actually go in and select the actual colors that you have on hand if you want to be using what's you already have on at home, or no, you just want to get like one more color. You can click those colors that you have, and then it will filter. So I guess there's only one color with that mixture, but if you were to click, like you can click, Lauren, like 5 colors, and then we'll show you all the different ones that we have.
To be under what I can work with, because what I already have is what you already have on hand, and then it'll only show you color formulas using those colors. But what can I make with is shows you all of the different possibilities with additional bottles.
Got it. So the way to narrow down, if you want to be able to filter, if you really have like Scarlet and Tangerine at home, but you want to maybe see what you can make just with those colors, you could click Scarlet and Tangerine with the
on the other side.
On the other side of the bar where it says work with what I already have. Or if you just want to see all the color possibilities, whether you have those dyes or not, but they include those, and you click the one on the right where it says what can I make with. So that's a super new handy tool that we actually recently added. And then we also have a drop down at the top that are, if you could, Lauren, real quick, unselect the products. I think there's a reset button. Thank you. We have collections. So like, for instance, we have a pastel collection. So you could narrow all the colors just to the, oh, there we go, all colors. You can narrow just to the pastels that we have. And then as Lauren was clicked on there, she didn't realize we have a filter just below those that shows like we have blues, pinks, reds, grays, yellows. And so you can filter that way as well. So now why don't we, you take us into like one of these colors and we can see what that looks like. Right, what a beautiful color. So this is Blue Sky. We have an option if you are in Canada, we can switch to metrics, or if in the US, we have the US measurements. It always defaults to a dye bath that's made with 3 gallons. But if you're looking to dye something that's smaller, we have a handy drop down with different options where you can choose, like Lauren, if you choose one of the items from the top.
So for lighter colors, we actually don't have a 4-cup dye bath. We'll have to pick a darker color. The lighter dye baths work better with a larger vessel just because it's so light. So this color in particular would only work with a 3-gallon dye bath or more.
Or a larger one.
If you go over to a little bit more like a pigmented or a darker color, it'll show you the 4-cup and different dye bath sizes and how you can change up the measurements for that.
Yeah, so like typically pastels require less dye, so the measurements get so small that it would be hard to make a smaller dye bath. If you choose one of these darker colors, you'll see there will definitely be the option to use smaller dye bath, and then it automatically redoes the formulation for you so that you can, see automatically what that recipe is with the smaller item. It's really trying to create the most easiest experience you can. And we're constantly evolving and making it better and better. But, we're pretty proud of these 1,000 different options you can have to pretty much make any color.
Yeah, it's really, really customizable and one of my favorite tools to use. I'm constantly on there and it's just crazy what different colors can create, different mixes. It's always a lot of fun personally for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
All right, a few things to remember before we get started. Again, color formulas work best on white. It'll be the truest on white, but you can over dye over existing colors. But just keep in mind color theory. For example, we dyed these blue jeans with yellow and it has this green tint on them because blue and yellow make green. So just kind of keep that in mind while you're dyeing. But if you're dyeing something white, you're good and you can just kind of move on with the recipe. But again, with over dyeing, you kind of have to think about how the colors will react together and how they'll blend and what it might look like afterwards. definitely suggest swatch testing for over dyeing as well.
And if you're dyeing something with the color, but you want to bring it back to white, we do have a product that you may have heard of called Rit Color Remover. It works on natural fabrics, and it basically will remove the colors so that you can pretty much start from a white place.
Yes, this is chlorine and bleach free. So other products can deteriorate your fabric because it has bleach and chlorine in it. But because this is free of that, it will allow the shirt to really take up the dye really well, even after taking the color out. If you ever tried over dyeing something that is bleached or has been treated with chlorine, the color will be not as saturated. I don't know if you guys have ever tried doing that. So if you ever want to over dye something and you want to strip the color, I recommend the color remover and not just like household bleach.
Yeah. And
yes, it
Yes.
also helps with stains, dye stains too. Like if I accidentally get like a little dot of yellow on my beautifully tan pillowcase I just dyed, I'll just use color remover and it kind of resets it so that I can dye over it and then get an even tone. But even like food stains and stuff, for if you have kids or if you're just a much eater, I think it helps too.
yeah, and the product is also available at Michael's, along with every shade that we make now being offered at Michael's starting this week.
Yes. All right. I think we should get started with some swatch testing. I'm gonna switch you guys over to our overhead camera so you can kind of follow along. Kind of have it nicely set up here. One of my favorite tricks to start with is adding grays to our color formula. Oh wait, before we start that. So pastels and tint.
Hey, Helena?
Yes.
For some reason, once you change the camera, it doesn't sound as clear.
Oh, let's see. Just one moment. How about now?
It just sounds muffled, or like you're not it's not the microphone anymore.
Let's go back.
I can hear Jonathan.
How about now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Not as good.
Interesting. Hey, but you just change it to the.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. So as I was saying, for tint in your traditional like paint tint, you would add white to create the tint of these different shades. But in dyeing, there is no white. So the water kind of acts as white. So emerald here is this very dark green. Here's the swatch. But we'll show you what you get if you only use a tiny bit of it. And we'll get started. So let me put these aside. These gloves I just got on Amazon. They're like very heat proof and I love them because they come up like all the way up to my elbows. So if you're dyeing something really big, I suggest getting longer gloves so you can like really get your hands in there and submerge. I think someone asked that in the comments, right? Yeah, okay. All right, so for emerald, because it's such a light color, like we said before, we're going to use a bigger dye bath. We can't use the 4-cup dye bath just because that would be way too light and it wouldn't, the color wouldn't show up as nicely. All right. Go get the water.
I would say like some of the biggest uses for these color formulas, which I've noticed, weddings is a huge, very popular way that people use color formulas. Often people have, you know, their very specific color palette and they want either the wedding decor like cheesecloth table runners or their bridesmaids dresses to be a certain color. So I would say all the time we're using color formulas for weddings.
we'll let that cool off and then wipe the camera lens off. We just poured that from the stove top. It keeps steaming up. Good. Okay. All right. So one of our color formulas is called Skylight, and it only requires half of a teaspoon. So we're only going to put this much amount of dye into this dye bath. And that will kind of exemplify the tint that I was talking about. So based on how much of this dye that you put in, it kind of controls the different tints you can achieve with one color. And you can also, there's a section in our color formulas where it's just like one color formulas. I don't know if there's too many in there, but this is one of them. And it's called Skylight. And you'll see in a second here why it's called Skylight. All right. Let's be able to see the bottle.
Yeah, often it's pretty incredible how much you can change a color just by changing the concentration. And so there are, just as Helena said, a ton of colors in our library that are just one color. And what we've done is just change the concentration. So if you have 3 gallons of water, we'll just have if you just put much less dye in, like what we're doing now, you'll get a much more pastel shade.
Yes. Yes, this is 3 gallons. I have a little piece of black tape here to keep me accountable. And usually I would leave this in here for like 10 to 15 minutes for something this small. But just for time, I'm just going to pull it out and you can kind of see water temperatures.
Typically, water temperature, we for all-purpose dye, like with what we're using, we recommend the hottest water from your tap, which is usually around 180 degrees Fahrenheit. If the water isn't hot enough, we often recommend supplementing your tap water with water from your stove, just to make sure you can get as much heat as you can. You know, our dye really does love hot water, so the hotter the water, the more vibrant color you'll get.
Yeah, and just for you know, time, we did have a pot boiling and it probably got a little too hot. It does not need to be this hot, or doesn't need to make your camera steam up, but
yeah. And if you're using our dye more for synthetics dye, we do recommend you do that on a stove.
yes.
It should be at least 210 degrees Fahrenheit. And we want to make sure that you maintain that temperature for the whole dyeing, you know, because synthetics are just trickier to dye, and so you just need that consistent hot water.
All right, so this is where we're at with half of a teaspoon, and this is called Skylight if you wanted to look this recipe up, if you couldn't remember 3 gallons of water with half a teaspoon. And then I'm going to leave that right there, and then we're going to add, let's try adding half a cup of emerald and see what kind of color we get. And I'm just going to add it to the same dye bath. It's still very, very hot. And if I was dyeing something like a t-shirt or something larger, I would be adding some dish soap and salt into this. That helps with dyeing, but because we're dyeing just these tiny little swatches, it's not necessary here. Just a little call out if you are dyeing something a little bit larger or different. And here's another cotton swatch that we'll be putting in. I mean,
Immediately.
yeah. It's just so crazy that that's from the same bottle, and it was only a matter of switching up the amount of dye. So obviously between these two shades, there's or between these two tints of emerald, there would be probably like 10 more shades that you can create by varying the different measurements. And Jonathan here has the dry swatches that we made earlier. So you kind of can tell the difference between, by varying the different amounts of dye, you can get different tints of the color that's in the bottle.
Awesome. And this we've been using emerald, which is one of our 54 shades that are now available at every Michael's.
Yep.
Starting this week.
Yeah, I think they're doing the reset this week. I'm gonna go in later this week. All right. So that is kind of the tints, but I will say it's I wouldn't recommend doing that with other colors like our petal pink. That itself is already kind of a pastel tone, so any lighter than that would be difficult to achieve on a white shirt. All right. Now that we have kind of dealt with the tints, let's move on to tone. So tone is when we add shades of gray in terms of paint. But in the world of dye, we add Rit charcoal gray or pearl gray, and this kind of changes the tone to be a little bit more muted. As you can see from this color chart, the tone is all the second column here. So you can see how like it turns it from this dark green to this kind of a muted green, a little bit lighter. Even this like blue green teal color, it mutes it down to this, or tones it down to this muted shade. And I will show you that in real time. Let's get, I'm gonna get 3 here. I'm gonna experiment with, I'll lay this down this way. We're gonna do purple in here, and then we're gonna do, let's do purple and pearl gray in this one, and then we'll do charcoal and pearl gray, or purple and charcoal gray in this one.
So while Helena's getting that set up, we could talk about another one of my favorite uses for our color formulas, Halloween, which is coming up very, very almost too soon. Although I do want to extend my summer as long as possible, I do need to start thinking about what my kids are going to be wearing. And I would say that like every costume, a lot of costumes have a very specific color. And so I've often used our color formulas to get that very specific color that we need for that Barbie costume or whatever costume you're making. In the cosplay world, if you're a cosplayer, I know that that's a huge use as well. I'm sure you can get that at michaels.com.
Yeah,
right?
I think it was such a long time ago. Honestly. I'm adding pearl gray into this middle one, and this already has purple in there. So all 3 has a 1/4 teaspoon of purple, and then I'm going to add in a 1/4 teaspoon of pearl gray into this one, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of charcoal gray into this one. And you can kind of see how the grays tone the existing color. Now remember, because we're only using a 1/4 teaspoon of this purple, the same thing's going to happen that we just did with emerald, where it'll be a very light tint and it won't be as saturated because we're using so little. All right, I got some water heated up in my kettle, and I'm just going to pour it in here. Let's do the regular purple. I'm just gonna just throw it in there and leave it in there, and then we'll take it out and compare. This is the pearl gray and purple, and then this is the charcoal gray and purple. You guys have any guesses on what each color might turn out like?
What would you say your favorite color is? What's your favorite color, Helena?
My favorite color?
Or your favorite category? Purples, pinks?
My favorite color, I would say, is like greens.
Okay.
Like bold, like truly green, I think is probably my favorite. But I love that like when you mix it with lemon yellow or golden yellow or any of like the oranges or yellows, you get kind of like a nice variation of all the different greens. But the pearl gray is probably my favorite mixing color, just because it creates this like beautiful, like not pastel, but like a little bit of a more muted tone if you're not into like the bright, bold colors like your spring pastels, I think would really like the pro grays. And, you know, if you have like a shirt that's bright purple and you just want to tone it down, you can just throw it into a pro gray dye bath and let it over dye it and like create like a little bit of, it's kind of like dyeing your hair, like toning it down a little bit. But yeah, what about you? What's your favorite color?
I love purples, honestly.
Really?
I don't know if I would wear them. I like them in my house.
You like looking at
I love
them?
our hyacinth, which is a
Yes.
shade that I would say is not widely available, but will be at Michael's.
Yes.
But I don't know. I'm with you with the greens. That's what I like to wear the most too.
Yeah. Okay, let's pull these out.
Excited to see these results. I honestly didn't know that charcoal gray was also an option.
Yeah, it
I
just
knew you used pro gray a lot, but
yeah, charcoal gray I don't think is like my personal favorite, which is probably why you haven't seen me using it as much.
ooh,
Right. You can already tell. You can see, I'll bring it up closer to the camera in just a second. So remember, this is only a 1/4 teaspoon of dye in these cups. So yeah, you see that. So this is just purple, just a 1/4 teaspoon of purple with pro gray and with charcoal gray. You can kind of see how the purple tones get a little bit darker as it's pro gray and charcoal gray is obviously darker. And we also made these swatches earlier just so that you guys can see them once they're dry, because they do lighten up quite a bit.
so this is purple, right? This is purple with pearl gray.
Yep.
And then this is
Yes.
purple with charcoal.
I will say these
Right.
ended up much darker than those. I think these are probably more true to color, but you kind of get the idea of how the pearl gray and charcoal gray impact the base color here. And so, I mean, you can literally do this with every single color we have, which just like immediately gets you like 100 different tones and tints and shades. So yeah, this is probably one of my favorite tricks. Whenever I have something that isn't quite the right color, I think, oh, maybe I can just like do a little pro gray or charcoal toning. But again, if you're into like the bold brights, I would just stick to the regular purple, and I would almost even double it if you're into the bolder colors, just because that will give you that like vibrant, vivid, bold color. So make sure you're using color stay dye fixative after you're done dyeing. This one right here, they don't come with the spray nozzle, but I'm obsessed with spray nozzle, so that's in there. But this will help to make the colors last longer, and then it also helps with bleeding and fading. Here, I'll just show you guys here. It doesn't make a difference here, but once I rinse this, it
will prolong the stability of the color for many more washings.
Yeah, and it just cuts down on rinse time too, which is one of my favorite parts about it. So when you're dyeing something really big, you don't want to like continuously have to wash so frequently or like so often afterwards. And you get tired, your arms hurt, you use up a lot more water that way too. But with fixative, you spray it on there and then you rinse it just once, and it's typically good after that. So yeah, that is what toning does with grayscale with our color formulas. Okay.
All right.
All right. Moving on. So one of my favorite things about our color formulas is just like seeing what you guys are into and seeing where you guys are clicking into, which color is getting the most clicks, like who, you know, and it changes by season. But we've had two that's been kind of the mainstay for a while. So I want to create them for you guys, and I want you to maybe try and guess what we're doing here. All right. So first one is going to be 4 teaspoons of eggplant and then 4 teaspoons of scarlet. So it's going to be equal parts scarlet and eggplant. And then some water.
More.
Not him. One second, we're going to fill up some more water. We ran out, but I'm gonna chat here while we do that. So this color form or this color wheel, you don't really need it. I just kind of have it here to show you how the grayscale and how different tints and adding white or water in this case helps to change it up. But it is helpful if you're trying to learn more about the color wheel at home. So
While that's heating up, I wanted to tell you my last favorite use for color formulas.
yes.
With football season coming up,
Yes.
everyone wants to have their colors for their favorite team.
Yes, I agree.
And why not use one of our color formulas to get that perfect color?
Yeah, I mean, because crimson red is definitely different than I don't know, like
USC.
yeah, I don't know any of it. Or like even the golds and yellows are very like it's like some teams are using like a marigold, but some people use kind of more like golden yellow. And so if you really want to get those colors specific and perfect, I definitely recommend color formulas.
Yeah, and you can even use them for tie-dye. Right?
Yes, that's my favorite. I know people are always like, oh, I want this color for tie-dye or that color for tie-dye. But it's like you literally have 1,000 colors you can create.
Yeah.
So
if you were going to do the squeeze bottle method, would you recommend making a larger like dye bath in here and then pouring it into the squeeze bottle?
Yes.
With the formula?
Like a Pyrex glass with a spout on it. Sorry, I have a sponge in here. But I would mix it up in here first. It has a nice little spout so you can like pour it into your squeeze bottle. And the other thing you kind of want to keep in mind is if you are using hot water, the squeeze bottle will be hot. So either wear your rubber gloves or if you're using just like room temperature water, just make sure you use the microwave method.
Microwave, or you can leave the clothing out in the sun.
Yes.
Our dye needs heat at some point. It could be after, but so if you use just normal tap water that's not that hot, you would just, as Paulina said, just pop it in the microwave. Just make sure it doesn't have any metal on it or anything that you couldn't put into a microwave. But normal fabric is okay. Or you could put it out in the sun, or you could use a hair dryer to heat it as well.
Hair dryer works really well, especially nowadays. They're so strong and so hot.
And another fun technique could be to dip, like if it's two colors, you could do a ombre or a dip dye, one color on one side and one color on the other.
Yeah, and then like you kind of want to think about color theory there too, right? If you dip one side into red and then one side into blue, like you'll probably get a little bit of purple in the middle. So just keep that in mind before you like go straight for it, just because we don't want to have any accidents. All right.
I'm going to switch back over to the overhead, right?
Yes. All right, we got our water heated up. We just have this like kettle and it heats up so fast. These are 4-cup mason jars. So if you're ever doing color formulas and stuff, I'm using the 4-cup measurements. All right, so for this one, it's equal parts 4 teaspoons of scarlet and eggplant.
So is this the most clicked color formula on our site?
Currently. Yes. In the last 3 months, this color has been the most clicked. Y'all are trying to see how to cook this up. The recipe has been.
Cannot wait to see what this is.
All right. We're gonna need 4 teaspoons. Bear with me here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Love this eggplant color. It's so pretty and like dark. And
Moody.
Moody, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna mix that up really nice, especially with our Scarlet. It's a little bit of a thicker dye, so you want to make sure that you really get it mixed nicely. All right.
Now, if you were using powder dye for formulas,
Don't cheat, no cheating. Color dropped.
I- yeah,
For powder dye, we have a really helpful conversion chart on our website that helps to convert like our like Scarlet. Like if you need 2 tablespoons of that, then the conversion chart will tell you like you only need 2 teaspoons of the powder dye. Just because the powder dye is more pigmented, so you need less of it. You wouldn't use the same amount.
and okay, that's good to know. But we definitely think liquid dye is the easiest for
I
using
think
with color formulas, right?
yeah, just because if you don't, then it's hard to tell if every single like tiny little dye molecule has been completely absorbed into
Yeah.
the water and everything, and it leaves more room for speckles and spots. And when you're working with color formulas and you're dyeing something orange, you don't want any red specks in there, right? Like if you're dyeing something red, like red specks won't show up, but if you're dyeing something like if you want to mix red and yellow to make orange, like there's a higher possibility of having like red specks show up. Just my 2 cents, but
Yeah,
again,
it's just it eliminates the extra step of having to pre-mix the colors before. Liquid, you
yes.
could just mix them together right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
So the colors on our bottle, someone just asked if how close is the color on our bottle to the actual swatch that you dye. It's a great question. So we match our colors on our bottles to a 3-gallon dye bath with 4 ounces of dye per 3 gallons, which is our standard on our bottle. But that's with cotton, 100% cotton. However, if you're dyeing something with a different fabric, not this, or a different concentration of dye or just anything a little bit off of that, the color may be different, but the most common dyeing is 100% cotton with our, directions on our bottle. And so that's the color that's matched on the bottle.
I think we're ready. Here we go.
Ooh.
Goodness. It's like a Bordeaux wine shade. This is called Brave Burgundy, if you want to look it up on our website. And once rinsed and dried, this is the color it turns into, this beautiful wine shade. But again, here are our like other swatches from this is, I believe that's cherry red, and this is fuchsia, or wait, no,
I think that's
wine and violet and wine.
Yeah.
And then see how, even though it's very similar, it's very different. So if you are looking for a very specific shade, color formulas are perfect, because like these colors are similar, but it's not that exactly. And these swatches are just from like straight out of the bottle. So you see how you said how true is the color to the bottle. I mean, that speaks for itself. I mean, it's pretty much the same. Can't really tell the difference.
It's a great comparison to show. So this would be wine, and then this is the color formula that Helena just made.
Mhm.
What's it called again?
It is called Brave Burgundy.
Awesome. Okay, should we do the next one?
Yeah, so that was, I think, number 2. And what I'm about to show you is our top color formula. And I'm just gonna dunk this right down the sink. Our dyes are, septic safe and non-toxic. So it's completely okay to just dump it down the sink. For faux leather, you definitely can. But again, because it's not cotton and it's not rayon or Amy, it's going to kind of create that tinting effect that we kind of talked about earlier. So the color's not going to be as true, but it will give you kind of like that slight tint. And it also depends on if your faux leather piece has any finishes or anything that might keep the dye from absorbing into the product itself. All right, let's move on to the next one. Then 4 cups. Who's gonna help me here? And this one is interesting. Like right up at the lip of the lid.
Okay, there you go.
All right, this one we're using orange and green. I mean, I don't even know like what color that would make if I didn't have the color formula, honestly. We're gonna do tangerine, sunshine orange, and apple green. Can you guys guess what color that might make? So I mix it up here.
I honestly cannot. Yeah.
Brown, yeah, maybe. All right, we're gonna do 2 teaspoons each of tangerine and sunshine orange. And I just want to show you guys the difference between sunshine orange and tangerine. I think it's quite stark. So when you're picking between the oranges, make sure you know what you're trying to choose. I believe that is sunshine orange and that is tangerine. Even I get confused. But yeah, just wanted to show you guys that. All right, we are going to do 2 teaspoons. Where are my teaspoons? And remember, always, always, always shake the bottle before. You want to make sure all the dye is evenly distributed before you pour. All right, 2 teaspoons of that. 2 teaspoons of sunshine orange. And for green, we're actually only going to be using, I believe, half, 2 teaspoons. I might have used too much sunshine orange, but I don't think it should make too big of a difference on the final color. TBD.
Huh.
Give it a little mix.
For this one, I'd love to see how the paper towel compares to the fabric swatch.
Sure do that. Remember, this is our top color formula, and I know I said it was only seasonal, but this one has been up there for quite some time.
I would say years, right?
Yeah. It's a very popular color. Oh. Piece of paper towel. I'm gonna fold it up, and then I have our last swatch here. So kind of dip them in at the same time, and I'm gonna just put this one in all the way, and then. All right. Does everyone have their guesses? Here we go. So this is burnt orange.
I love the names out of our formulas too.
And I'm really jealous that they get to create all these names. It's like nail polish names. So this is burnt orange. And then
Beautiful.
this was the paper towel test. Let's just give the swatch a minute or 2 in there just to kind of absorb all the good fab dye. All right, I mean, that was in there for what, like 2 minutes, not even. And it's already kind of taken the color really beautifully.
Wow, love that.
And it's very, I mean, it's pretty true to color.
Yeah. So it's in some circumstances, the paper towel could be a quick way to just test the color without having to actually have fabric.
Yes, exactly. And then I wanted to do something similar and show you guys the dry version of this. I made it earlier today. So yeah, you can kind of tell it's a little bit more muted once it dries. Like it gets like, if anything gets wet, it just kind of has that saturated look. And so as it dries, it gets a little bit lighter. So always keep that in mind. And if you want that to be darker, I would just add more tangerine into it.
Or can you just dye it for longer?
Yeah, you can also leave it in there for much longer. I was kind of in a rush when I was making these swatches, so they probably didn't stay in there for the recommended time, but it does kind of get the gist of how the colors change and with additional colors added into the formulas. All right. Yeah, here are all of our beautiful swatches that we created today. Remember the tints, these are both emeralds, and all the different types of tones you can do with the gray. This was the purple, and then these were the two pearl gray and charcoal gray add-ons. So you can tell the difference. And then here are our top color formulas: brave burgundy and
burnt oranges.
And burnt oranges. Sorry, thank you. These are actually really cute together.
Yeah.
I would wear this together.
You should.
I will.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we're super excited for this week because this is when I think almost every Michaels location will have every shade of Rit. So we definitely recommend you check out the color formulas on our Rit landing page on the Michaels site.
Are all of our colors up there? I think it's missing one, but
anyways, thank you again for tuning in.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again for our next Michaels live session, I believe in about a month and a half.
it'll be for Halloween, so think about what costumes you might want to be dressed up as.
All right, thanks.
Bye.